Okay, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Victor, and I'm going to be your anchor for this training. Okay, if you just new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you're existing subscriber, today we're going to be looking at how do you create a WordPress website, implement it within your system that is running XAMPP. So we're going to be using XAMPP for this training, but there are other options. So I will explain that as we move on. WordPress is a very popular site, CMS, content management system. So there are other content management systems like Joomla, Drupal, Magento, SMF, PHP, and quite a whole lot of them. But our focus today is how can we build a PHP MySQL driven website on our system without being online. So the agenda for the training is I'll use 1 minute to go through what we're going to do on the training. Then we're going to go to the labs. We're going to go to the hands-on and see how to run that. So you want to see how can you create a WordPress website locally on your system. So this is good if you're learning web design. This is good if you're learning web development. You want to see how to do stuff within your system without hosting on a hosting company. So installing WordPress on your computer will help you chart WordPress. It will help you do a lot of testing. Okay. What is important is that anything we're going to be building here is going to only be visible to you yourself, right? That's why it's called local development. So all of the development you're going to be doing is just for you yourself, just to test out things. You can be building a blog, you can be building an e-commerce website, you can be building a corporate website, you can be building whatever you're building, but it's just going to be available for just you. Once we're done with this, later on, you can see how can we migrate whatever we've built here online. And the question is, what's XAMPP? So this is XAMPP. So you could download this, right? Once you download this, you just say, what's it called? Just a moment. You just say, you just say download XAMPP. So you can be using Windows, you can be using Mac, you can be using Linux systems, whatever, right? So if you run Windows, you could download this, depending whether you're running 64 bits, depending on the version of PHP you want to run. The latest version for PHP should be around 8 point something. The question is, XAMPP is cross-platform Apache, MySQL, PHP, and Perl. So if you're programming in PHP or Perl, and you're going to be using MySQL, then Apache is your server, then you want to run XAMPP. So LAMP is Linux. If you're running a Linux system, Apache is going to be your server, MySQL is going to be your database, PHP is going to be your language. So I think you have it here. So XAMPP is an easiest to install Apache distribution containing MariaDB, times older variant of it is MySQL, PHP, and Perl, right? So if you're running Linux, so it's going to be LAMP. Now, the cross-platform will also work for it, right? Why you say X, it's because you're saying if you're running Linux, if you're running Mac, if you're running Windows, the XAMPP is still going to work, right? Then, but if you just want something that is just get towards Linux, then you download LAMP. If you want something that's get towards just Windows, then you download WAMP, W-A-M-P. Protecting that's all. You just download this, you install. Once you've installed, you have this. What you want to do next is to make sure that you start this. So I'll just go through what we're going to be doing. So XAMPP is a software package that helps you have a server, a MySQL database. Then, of course, for beginners, you want to have that within your system. Now, the question is, how do you install XAMPP on your system? It's a very straightforward process. You just get to the XAMPP, the Apache Friends website. You download, you install for the process, next, right? Then you want to hit start and you have it up and running. So we're going to do that. just want to go through the guide, and I'm going to put this link in the comment section or in the description. Now, you want to make sure that you give XAMPP permission while you try installing. I've already installed my own, so that's why I'm trying to go through this. I've already installed that. Now, you want to make sure that you allow access, right? The next thing you want to do is to download WordPress. So I think I haven't downloaded WordPress, so I will say download WordPress. So I'll go to wordpress.org. I think this is fine. So WordPress I've grown over the years. I think I started using WordPress when it was still version, I think 2 point something. So we've had version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5. Now it's version 6, right? So you want to download this. You could also opt to download the older versions, right? You could also opt to download the older versions. But let's just download what's most recent. So it's a zip file. It's downloading. We have 21.7 MB. Okay, I think that's all. So the instruction says we download WordPress. So we're going to download that. By the time you're watching this video, the version might be a little bit recent. So it all depends. This is October 9th, 2022. Okay, so after downloading WordPress, you want to extract this and have just the particular file. So I have it here. It's opened. So this is the file. I want to cut this. And okay, I think let me not cut. Let me just copy it because I might need to use it again. Okay, I've copied that. I want to make sure I extract it. Then you want to head over to the XAMPP folder. So when you install XAMPP, what happens is that XAMPP creates a folder within your system, right? So this is the folder. So C drive, XAMPP, htdocs, then you want to paste that here. So I want to make sure that I extract this. So I duplicated the copies. I want to extract one because I'm going to be using one to build the website. Now, the good advantage of building locally is that you can have as many websites locally as possible just to try out. So this is my test system at home. I could use it to do development, use it to test out things and whatever. So that is very possible. So I'm trying to extract all the files of the WordPress. So this WordPress is the core file that you're going to be using for your development process, right? So on Windows, C drive, XAMPP, htdoc folder. So you want to navigate that. If you're running Mac, you go to your application, XAMPP, htdoc folder. So the goal is to extract that file and place it in this particular folder. So that's what I've done. So mine is still extracting on 31%. So once it's done, the next thing you want to do is now navigate to localhost / that website's name. So the thing is that you need to rename this website, this WordPress, to the name of the website you want to design. Okay, so let's pause the video, wait for this stuff to finish extracting, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I think our extract is done. So this htdoc, so this is the folder. So these are zipped copies, right? So this is what has been extracted. Okay, so you want to make sure that you navigate to the exact folder where you have all the files. So I'll copy everything I have here. Just cut it. And this is the folder. I want to just paste it here, right? And I could make away with this. So I want to call this, rename the folder to blog site, right? Blog site. So, right? So what's the next step? Once it's renamed, next thing you want to do is that you want to navigate to localhost / the name of the site you indicated. So we'll say localhost / blog site. So, but before you do this, you want to make sure that you started XAMPP, right? because this is your server. What you're trying to say is that anytime you want to build within your local environment, you want to make sure that you started Apache, which is your server, and you want to make sure that you've started MySQL, which is your database. So WordPress is a PHP MySQL based site. So I want to allow access, because if I don't allow access, I won't be able to make changes. My firewall might be hindering me to actually make changes to the system. So I've given Apache and MySQL access to my system so that I can make changes. So you want to make sure that these two guys are green. Once they are green, your server is up and running within this system and you could start development. If they are not on, it then means that you cannot build database-driven websites. Though you're able to build things like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, like WordPress, like a bootstrap website, but you won't be able to build anything that has to do with a database. Because for a database-driven website, you need a server, you need a database system, right? So, but since WordPress is a database system, it's a database-driven CMS, content management system, then I have to make sure anytime I want to build, I start up my XAMPP and I start it. So once I'm done, I could stop. So first thing before you say localhost/blog site, you just want to go to your system, start up your XAMPP. Next thing you want to do is hit on these two buttons. Once they are all green, it then means your server is up and running and you could navigate to that particular site. Okay, now I'm in blog site slash. So I just did this, but it directed me to the setup file, right? So this is what is happening. So this is the blog site. I don't know the kind of extension that is on this system that keep bringing up all this pop-up. So sorry for that. I'll try to fix that later on within the next coming video. Okay, so I have this blog site. So this is the core files. See, they're all PHP files, right? These are the core files that makes up my core WordPress. So later on, you could learn, we could teach you how to make some changes, some adaptations, some integrations with these core files. But for now, all we're interested in is how do we set up WordPress on this local system. So we go back to our guide. We're here. Yes, that is where we are now. What's the next thing to do? You hit select the language and hit continue button. So English, right? Continue button. So welcome to WordPress. Before getting started, you need the following items. You need a name, a username, password, host, and table prefix, right? This information is being used to create a WP config file. So in WordPress, a WP config file is very important, right? So that's the configuration file. This is it here. So this is the WP config sample file, which is this, right? That's where we're going to go to do all of the configurations. But with this sample file, we will now need to create, after we finish configuring, it will now help us to create the actual config file. It will not be sample again. Once we are done, we're going to see that we now have a WP config file. We can open this on Visual Studio Code to see what it looks like. Okay, I'll be closing unnecessary things I don't need. Do I need this? Okay, close this up. So while I wait for that to open on Visual Studio Code, I'm just going to write on. So, but before I do that, I want to make sure I have a database name and a username, maybe, and a password and a host. So I'm going to tell you how all of that is going to be. So I've just opened that WP config file. So let's inspect the file and see what it has. Now, it has some configuration files and, okay, do I trust? Yes. Open. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So it's a PHP file. What is most important is that here you're defining these parameters, the database name, the username, the password, and the host. So the host is, if you're on localhost, most times it's localhost. The database name, we're going to create that. Then for the user, we can have it. Most of the times is root. The password, we want to leave that empty. For the hosts, we can leave that at localhost. So the thing there is that you could also decide that your username and password for your database system is passworded. When we move this website to a live server, I'm going to teach you how to make all of those changes. But for now, we'll create a database name. We'll leave this as root. We'll leave this password empty, and we'll leave this as localhost. So this is actually the file we're trying to use as our boilerplate to create the actual WP config file. So that's why it's called WP, that is WordPress configuration sample. So with this, we're able to create the actual config file. Okay, let's go to the guide. What does the guide say next? So we need to go create a database. So after we've arrived here, next thing we want to do is go to localhost phpMyAdmin. So that's where we could do localhost/phpMyAdmin. So that's where we could see all the database we have on this systems, on this system. That's where we'll see all the tables, all the rows, all the whatever we're building, right? Because like I said, PHP is WordPress is PHP MySQL driven. This is what my phpMyAdmin looks like. So if you're not familiar with this environment, just take a deep breath, relax. It's all going to be fun. It's all going to be simple. All you're having here is you can be able to create databases, be able to import databases as SQL files. You're able to see statuses. You're going to be able to see your user accounts. That is everybody that can have access to this particular database. You're able to export a database that already have. For instance, if we need to migrate this site we're building locally online, this is how we can do that. Of course, you can be able to import, you can have settings, replications, all the way down. All our interest now is to see how we can create a database that we're going to use for these websites, right? The blog websites, the blog site. Okay, so we'll go to the database, we'll type database name, and we'll click on create. So I'm going to say blog site, just keep it simple. It's all demo. Blog site, and I click on create. So I've successfully created a database, and it's going to be listed here. A database is going to have tables, it's going to have rows, right? So for now, we've just created a database, and that's fine. If we need to create a database, we go to come here, right? We'll click on database, type the name of the database, and hit on create. So we could create as many databases as possible, depending on how many sites that we're building. So for now, we have blog site, that's database. We don't need to populate or create tables because our installation is going to do that automatically for us, right? So what's the next thing? Once you create the database, you can use to for your WordPress website. Switch back to this and click on let's go. So I have a database name. I have all of these details. I'm going to tell you what we're going to use. We'll click on let's go. So it's going to ask us, what database name do we have, right? So I say blogspot, sorry, blog site, right? Let me confirm because it must sync. It must be same. You're trying to create a website for this database. So it's blog site. So you must make sure it's blog site username. I think we're going to use root for password. We'll leave it empty for database localhost for table prefix. So table prefix is going to be all of the tables you have in a database. So a database contains is like an Excel sheet, for instance. So it's going to have tables. Then for each table, you're going to have rows and you're going to have columns. So the question is, how are you going to be able to identify this particular table on this database? You could leave this, or you could just call it BG, that is for block site, so that anytime you see it on the database, you're able to identify that this belongs to this particular database, right? There are ways to actually have username and password for the database, but I'll not go into that so that everything is simple. So if you want to build yours, you can make the database name, whatever name, keep this as root, leave this as empty. Okay, so I'll submit. Good. All right. Sparky, you've made it to this part of the installation. WordPress cannot communicate with the database yet. If you got any of the stuff wrong, it's going to tell you you have an error message and the rest. So let's look at this blog site. Okay. Nothing yet. So I need to run my installation file now. So it then means that it's able to connect to this guy. And let us see the folder config. Awesome. You see, it has created a configuration file, an actual configuration file. Before it just had sample, but now it has created a configuration file. I'm taking my time to explain all of the process so that you know it's something that is straightforward, right? You want to understand why and how everything is happening. So this is it. Has created it, block site, root, empty, localhost. The sample was what? Empty, 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 or default. So, but now we now have a configuration file. Okay, so that's that. So all we need to do is to run the configuration file. Once we run this configuration file, it's going to automatically load all these tables and we'll have all of the defaults. So I run. Awesome. So good. What's our site title? Blog site for starters. Username. So the question is, how are you going to be able to access this website, the dashboard of this website? So I can say blog site pro. Password. Let me keep this simple. Let me just say blog site pro also. Right? Yes, it's weak. I'll just leave it that way. I want to use a weak password. I'm on my local dev environment. What's my email? Not too necessary, but I'll just put this. Discourage searching users from indexing this site. Not really. I'm actually offline, so it doesn't mean. So I'll install the WordPress website. So don't forget this username and password because that's what you'll be able to use to log into this dashboard to make all of your changes. So it is Blog Site Pro. Password is Blog Site Pro. Install WordPress. So it's running now. Within a few seconds, we're going to have WordPress up and running. And this stuff is going to be updated, right? We'll have several table names, several rows, several columns. Awesome. So we have them already populated while the installation is ongoing, right? So installation is still going on. So I have, you see, the prefix I told you about, BG. So all of the comments meta tags, the comments, the links I have, the options I have, the post meta, the pose, the term, relationship, taxonomy, users. You see all of the users that we have on the database, you could come read them here. This is the blog site, this is the encrypted password, this is the nickname, this is the username. So I have everything all loaded. Awesome. So my site is up and running. I can now log in. So good enough. This is the very first part of the video, and you've successfully implemented WordPress on your local system. So if you want to access this site anytime, any day on this machine, all you need to do is to start up XAMPP. Make sure you start these two guys. Then you go to Blogspot, you go to localhost/blog site. So this is what you're going to see. Okay, I didn't do that. Well, blog site. Good. So, hooray, ooh la la. So we have a fresh site on our machine. So we are free to now start building. So the question is, how do you log in? /wp-admin. That is the default login for WordPress sites. But in the course of our course, we're going to see how do we customize it and make it kind of private. So blog site, pro, blogs, blog sites pro. So with this, I'll have access to the dashboard and I can now make awesome websites. I can build e-commerce websites. I can build corporate websites. I can build portfolio website. I can build portals. I can build whatever I need to build. Yes. Thank you for staying this long. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you share to friends interested in doing awesome stuff with tech. So I'm going to come to the part 2, where we're going to start examining the dashboard, see posts, media, pages, comments, appearance, plugins, users, tools, settings. We want to see how to build an amazing site with the core of what we have right now. Thank you very much and see you.